connected. I think the key problem is that you have the ideology, which is the source of the problem. That is what is inspiring these attacks, whether directly or indirectly. We, of course, don't know at this stage whether there were direct links or not in each of these cases. We know ISIS have claimed credit for one, for example. We don't know how the other two have come about yet. But what is clear is that they are interconnected through the ideology that drives them. And that is the key thing that governments are going to have to look at very carefully. How do they stop this ideology from spreading? How do the Muslim communities deal with this threat to themselves? And of course, on the intelligence side, how do you make sure, in the West at least, but indeed in other places as well, you can stop these terrorist attacks before they take place?
Right, and on the intelligence side, as you mentioned, I mean, let's just talk about France for now. You had the Charlie Hebdo attacks and, the Kouachi brothers in Koulibaly. I mean, these were people that were being surveilled by French authorities. They kind of felt the cracks, and when we were having this breaking news, we were asking, our analysts and experts, how in the world did they fall through? And then this terror attack happened, and now you have these attacks near Lyon in France, and this is a man who, by the way, was also under surveillance starting in 2006. That was suspended in 2008, and he was being watched by authorities because he had some kind of contact with Muslim fundamentalists. So, I mean, how is this happening?
Well, it's a question of resources, isn't it? We cannot possibly keep tabs on everyone who's come into contact with a sort of suspected terrorist source. It is very difficult to do. We have that problem in Britain. Obviously, the French have a similar problem. To actually monitor everyone on that level would lead to sort of situations within society which I don't think society would necessarily accept. The years there, 2006, 2008, that's some time ago already in terms of time. The suspect's wife claimed that she didn't know anything about it. It's possible she didn't. We know he may have gone underground. Something may have provoked him today into doing something. He was clearly dangerous at one point. He was clearly dangerous again today. Was he dangerous in the interim time? Only the French services can tell us what they thought about that after the event. It is a problem, but it's one of resourcing more than anything else. Unless governments are willing to spend a lot more and citizens are willing to allow a lot more surveillance, we're going to have similar problems reoccurring.
And when you talk about ideology as well and addressing that factor, there's obviously some kind of allure for the people who are attracted to ISIS and these other terror groups. And you also have female recruiters who are writing these beautifully written blogs, telling their sisters to come and fight the fight in Syria and support their brothers in ISIS. Help us understand this allure.
Well, the allure is very simply because people are being sold a utopia. They're being told this is the sort of culmination of your dreams. It's going to be heaven out there. Literally, I'm afraid, in some cases, if you're a suicide bomber. But the fact is, they're being sold a lie. It's not going to be heaven at all, particularly if you're a woman. What we need to get across, what Western governments need to get across, is that essentially, if you're a woman, you go to, say, ISIS territory, you will no longer be free. You will become either someone's wife unwillingly, you will be raped, you will end up having to raise their children, and if you try and escape, you will be killed. That's a message that needs to be getting across to people in the West about what the reality of life is out there.
It's hard to understand, though. I mean, how is this heaven? You're seeing a severed... I mean, again, we're not making the connection to any particular group yet, but if this is, inspired by some kind of a fundamentalist ideology, I mean, how is that heaven when you see a severed head on a gate, or you see innocent people being massacred on a beach who are simply there just to soak in some sun?
Well, it's not heaven to you and me, obviously, but it may be heaven to someone who's been sold that this is God's will at the end of the day. The God has determined that unbelievers are to be killed and to be made examples of. That is the way to serve God. Therefore, you do this, God will be pleased, you will end up in heaven. That is, I'm afraid, the basic level of the ideology we're dealing with. It's an ideology that says that to love God, you have to hate others.
Alan Mendoza, thank you so much for breaking this down for us and helping us try to understand some of all this. Appreciate your time.